The space station was quiet. Too quiet. Once it had been a hub for traders, smugglers, and lost travelers, but now it was nothing more than a skeleton of rusting steel drifting in the endless dark. The docking bay lights flickered weakly, buzzing, as if they too were dying. Only one man remained here, Darren, a mechanic who refused to leave even when everyone else had abandoned this place. He worked because work kept him sane. Machines did not lie, and broken metal always needed fixing. That night, or what passed for night in space, he heard a sound that froze his blood. It wasn't the hiss of pipes or the groan of metal. It was footsteps. Heavy, uneven footsteps echoing through the hollow station. Darren grabbed his old wrench, holding it tight like a weapon, and moved carefully toward the docking bay. The sound grew louder until he finally saw her. A figure collapsed against the wall, armor cracked and smoking as if it had taken the full blast of a starship cannon. Sparks hissed from glowing lines across her chest plate. She tried to stand, but her body shook and gave way, falling to the cold floor with a hollow clang. Darren's first thought was simple. This wasn't normal armor. The plating shimmered with faint energy, and strange symbols pulsed along its surface, symbols he didn't recognize from any human design. He hesitated. She could be dangerous. She could be alien. She could be the reason this station had fallen, silent long ago. But then she coughed, weak and breathless, and for a brief second Darren saw her face through the cracked helmet visor. Human. Pale, scarred, but unmistakably human. Darren's heart raced. He was no soldier, no hero, but something inside him told him to move. He dropped his wrench, rushed forward, and knelt beside her. Her breathing was shallow, every inhale sounding like it might be her last. "You're hurt," he said, though he knew she couldn't hear him through the helmet. "You're not going to make it if I don't fix this." He dragged her closer to his workshop, metal scraping across metal as he pulled her heavy frame. The armor weighed more than any normal battlesuit. Every time he stopped to catch his breath, he could feel the faint hum of energy inside the suit. It was alive in a way he couldn't explain. When he finally reached the dim glow of his workshop lights, Darren laid her down on the repair table. Her helmet cracked open with a soft hiss and air escaped like smoke. For the first time he saw her clearly. She had dark hair clinging to her forehead with sweat, and her eyes, though half closed, shone with sharp fire. They were the eyes of someone who had seen war, death, and betrayal, but still refused to break. "Help. Me," she whispered, her voice weak yet commanding, as if she had never spoken in anything less than an order. Darren nodded without thinking. He didn't know who she was, didn't know what battle she had escaped from, but he knew one thing. If he didn't repair her armor, she would die. He pulled open his toolbox and began working. Sparks flew as he pried open damaged sections, his hands moving faster than his thoughts. The armor was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't made of steel or titanium. It was something far beyond. Metal that healed when touched by heat, circuits that pulsed like veins under skin, layers that seemed to shift and rearrange themselves. Every time his tools touched the suit, he felt a faint vibration crawl up his arm, like the armor was testing him, judging him. He shook the feeling, away and focused. Piece by piece he repaired what he could. He sealed cracks with welding beams, replaced shattered components with scraps from his workshop, and used every trick he knew from a lifetime of fixing broken machines. All the while, she lay silent, watching him. Her breathing grew steadier with each repair. At times her eyes closed and her head tilted to the side, but whenever he slowed down, she opened them again, sharp as a blade, as if silently commanding him to keep working. The silence was heavy. Only the hiss of welding and the hum of the armor filled the air. But in Darren's chest a storm brewed. Who was she? Why was she here? Why was her armor more advanced than anything humans had ever built? And why did she fall in his path, of all places? As he worked, he noticed something strange. On the inside of her armor's plating, hidden beneath the circuits, were markings, symbols shaped like crowns, suns, and galaxies. He frowned. This wasn't just armor for war. It was armor for someone important, someone powerful. When he finally sealed the last crack, the armor pulsed with light. The glow filled the workshop, brighter than any lamp. For a moment, Darren stepped back, shielding his eyes. The air vibrated with energy. The armor wasn't just repaired, it was awake, and so was she. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly with the same power as the suit. She sat up with new strength, her breathing no longer ragged. Her presence filled the room, pressing down on Darren like the weight of 1,000 suns. "You repaired it," she said softly, but her voice carried something unshakable. Authority. Darren swallowed hard, stepping back. He had only wanted to help. He had only wanted to save a life. But in that moment, he felt something deep in his bones. He hadn't just repaired a suit of armor. He had awakened something far greater, something the galaxy itself might fear, and though he didn't know it yet, his life had just changed forever. Darren thought he was finished. He thought repairing the armor was enough, but the truth was only beginning to unfold. The moment the glow faded to a steady pulse, the stranger sat upright, her breathing calmer, her posture straighter, but her eyes carried the weight of countless stars. They locked onto him, sharp and unblinking, and for the first time in his life, Darren felt as if he was being judged by someone far beyond human. The workshop was filled with the faint hum of her armor. It wasn't just repaired, it was alive, again. The faint symbols on the plating flickered with golden light, like constellations shifting across the surface. Darren had repaired many machines in his life, broken ships, collapsed engines, fractured drones, but nothing like this. This was not just technology. It was something else, something that felt more like a living being wrapped in steel. "You touched it," she said finally. Her voice was steady now, calm yet commanding. "Why?" Darren froze. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He hadn't thought of why. He had just acted. He looked down at his oil-stained hands and shrugged weakly. "Because you would have died." For a long silence, she just stared at him. Then she leaned back slowly, her gaze softening by the smallest fraction. "Most would have walked away, you did not." Darren wanted to ask who she was. He wanted to ask what this armor was. But fear held his tongue. Instead, he looked back at the glowing plates and realized something else. The repairs weren't perfect. The core was still unstable, humming unevenly as if fighting against his work. He wasn't done. "Not yet." "I need to finish it," he said at last, breaking the silence. Her head tilted slightly. "You are not afraid?" He almost laughed at the absurdity. His heart was hammering in his chest like a war drum. He was terrified. But fear had never stopped him before, not when engines threatened to explode in his face, not when broken machines nearly crushed him. He had always fixed things because that's what he did. Machines needed him. And this armor, this stranger, needed him too. "I don't know what this is," he said, forcing his voice steady. "But I can see it's not stable. If I don't finish the work, it'll fail. And if it fails, so will you." The woman's eyes narrowed, but not in anger, in thought. Then, with slow, deliberate movement, she lay back on the table and let the armor's glow dim slightly. "Then finish it," she commanded. Darren got to work. He opened the lower chest plates, exposing an inner structure that looked nothing like human engineering. It wasn't wires and circuits. It was threads of light woven together, pulsing like veins of a living creature. He had no tools for this. No training. Yet somehow, as his hands moved, he knew what to do. The light responded to him, bending and shifting as if obeying his will. Each adjustment sent a shock up his arms. His skin prickled, his heart raced, but he kept going. He didn't understand why, but he felt as if the armor trusted him. Or maybe it was testing him. Behind him, the woman watched silently, her eyes never leaving him. At times, he felt her gaze burning into his back, heavy with questions she didn't ask. Hours passed in silence. The only sounds were the faint crackle of welding the hiss of sparks and the steady hum of the armor's core. Then, as he sealed the final fracture, a sudden surge of power erupted. The workshop shook, lights flickered, and the entire station seemed to groan under the pressure. Darren stumbled back, shielding his face as the armor's glow blazed brighter than before. Lines of golden energy raced across the plating, forming patterns that looked like crowns, galaxies, and rivers of stars. For a moment, the entire bay looked as if it had been swallowed by starlight. Then it stopped. The glow faded to a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. The armor was whole again, alive, complete. The woman sat up, her every movement graceful yet filled with authority. The broken, weakened figure from before was gone. What sat before Darren now was someone far greater, someone powerful, commanding, unstoppable. "You have done what no other could," she said softly, though her words carried an edge of steel. "You repaired the crown." Darren blinked. "The crown?" She tapped the armor across her chest, where the glowing symbols pulsed brighter than ever. "This is no armor. This is the imperial crown of stars. It is not worn. It is inherited. And you have restored it." Her words struck him like a thunderbolt. Imperial. Crown. Stars. He didn't understand the full weight of it. But one thing was clear. This woman wasn't just a soldier, or a refugee, or some lost wanderer. She was someone with power beyond imagination. But before he could speak again, alarms screamed through the station. Red lights flashed and the ground shook as heavy footsteps echoed down the corridors. The sound wasn't human. It was sharp, mechanical, and hungry. Her eyes narrowed. She rose to her feet, the crown glowing with strength. "They found me," she whispered. Darren's breath caught in his throat. Whoever they were coming fast. And for the first time he realized the truth. By helping her, by repairing the unknown, he had just pulled himself into a war that stretched far beyond Earth. The stranger was no longer just a stranger. She was something far more dangerous. And now the enemy knew exactly where she was. The alarm screamed through the station, red lights flashing across the walls like angry eyes. Darren's workshop shook under the weight of something approaching, something heavy, something that was not meant to be here. He froze, wrench still in hand, staring at the woman he had just repaired. She stood tall now, her armor glowing with strength, her presence filling the room like a storm about to break. "They are here," she said, her voice low but certain. "The hunters." The word sent a chill through Darren's veins. Hunters. Not raiders, not pirates. Something worse. The metallic footsteps grew louder, echoing from the corridors beyond the bay. Sharp, precise, mechanical. Whoever was coming wasn't human. Darren turned to her, his voice breaking. "Who are they? What do they want?" Her gaze never left the door. "They want me. They want the crown." Her hand brushed across her chest plate where golden light pulsed in steady rhythm. "And they will burn everything in their path to take it." Before Darren could answer, the doors at the far end of the hangar rattled, then bent under the force of a blow. Metal screeched, sparks rained down, and with a deafening crash the doors tore open. They came in, towering machines of war, standing on sharp legs, their frames built from black alloy. Their eyes glowed red, scanning the room with predatory hunger. Energy weapons hummed in their arms. They moved with cold precision, like beasts without fear. Darren stumbled back, his chest tight with terror. He had no weapon, no way to fight. His instincts screamed at him to run. But the woman did not move. She stood still, her armor glowing brighter, her figure unshaken by the army before her. One of the machines stepped forward, its voice a metallic growl. "Surrender the crown. Empress, your reign ends tonight." Darren's eyes widened. Empress. The word slammed into him like a hammer. He turned to her, his heart pounding, his mind spinning. Empress. He had repaired the armor of an empress. The ruler of stars, the very center of power for civilizations he had never even heard of. The woman, no, the Empress, smiled faintly. It was not the smile of someone defeated. It was the smile of someone who knew what power truly was. She raised her hand and the golden lines across her armor blazed to life. The machines opened fire. Bolts of plasma screamed across the hangar, slamming into walls, burning through steel, shattering crates into dust. Darren dove behind a console, his hands over his head, heart hammering like a war drum. But the Empress did not flinch. The first blast struck her chest, exploding in a flash of fire and light. The glow of her armor flared, the energy bending around her like a shield. Sparks showered the floor, but she stood untouched. She lifted her hand higher, and the air itself seemed to vibrate. A pulse of golden energy burst from her armor, rippling outward like a shockwave. The first row of machines staggered back, their frames cracking, their eyes flickering. Some collapsed, crushed under the invisible weight of her power. Darren could only watch in awe. She wasn't just wearing armor. She was wielding something far greater, something alive, something ancient. But more machines poured in, endless ranks filling the hangar. The Empress turned, her voice steady. "Darren, you must leave." He shook his head, fear choking his words. I can't fight them." "You are not meant to fight them," she said sharply. "Not yet. You must survive. You are tied to me now. That makes you a target." Before he could answer, the floor shook again. Outside, through the shattered bay doors, the black void of space lit up with new stars. But they weren't stars. They were ships. Dozens, no, hundreds. An entire fleet encircling the station. Darren's stomach dropped. He had seen fleets before, old Earth battleships, trade convoys, pirate squadrons. But nothing like this. These ships were vast, black as night, armed with weapons that glowed like dying suns. They moved with silent hunger, closing in on the abandoned station like predators surrounding wounded prey. The Empress stood tall, her voice low but steady. "The storm has come." Darren clutched the edge of the console, sweat dripping down his face, his mind spinning. He was a mechanic, a nobody. He fixed machines, not wars. Yet somehow, by repairing broken armor, he had stepped into the heart of a galactic storm. The Empress turned to him, her eyes blazing with power. "You must choose, human. Run and hide and hope they never find you. Or stand with me and face the storm." Darren's breath caught. Fear screamed at him to run, to escape, to survive. But another voice rose inside him, the same voice that had made him act when he found her broken in the shadows. He had chosen to help once. Could he turn away now when the galaxy itself seemed to hang in the balance? The hangar shook again as the machines advanced, weapons ready, the enemy fleet outside charging their cannons. The storm was here, and Darren knew, whatever choice he made, his life as a simple mechanic was gone forever. The hangar burned with the light of plasma fire. Sparks rained from the ceiling, smoke coiled through the air, and the ground shook with every strike from the enemy fleet outside. Darren crouched low behind the ruined console, his ears ringing from the blasts. His heart begged him to flee, yet his eyes kept returning to her. The woman he had saved, the stranger he had repaired, the one the machines had called Empress. She stood in the middle of the storm, unshaken, her golden armor glowing brighter with every blast. The energy around her shimmered like a living shield, bending plasma shots away, turning destruction into harmless bursts of light. Every movement she made was calm, deliberate, regal. She was not just surviving, she was commanding the chaos, as if the battlefield itself bowed to her presence. Darren could not hold back anymore. He shouted over the noise, his voice cracking. "Who are you? What are you?" Her eyes flicked to him, sharp and unyielding. For a heartbeat she was silent, her gaze heavy enough to make him feel like he stood naked under starlight. Then she answered, her voice steady and cold. "I am Solara, Empress of the Star Throne, Keeper of the Crown, Ruler of 1,000 worlds." The word struck him harder than the explosions outside. 1,000 worlds. He tried to imagine it, whole planets bowing, star systems kneeling, fleets of warships bearing her banner. And he had dragged her broken body through a half-dead station, like she was no more than another stranger. He had welded her armor with scraps, patched it with his clumsy human hands, never knowing he was touching the very symbol of an empire. Solara raised her hand, and the golden veins across her armor pulsed. A surge of energy blasted outward, sending another wave of machines crashing to the floor, their frames torn apart like paper. Her voice thundered through the hangar, no longer weak but filled with command. They think me fallen, they think me broken. But the crown is whole again, and with it so am I. The words were not just for him. They were for the enemy, for the galaxy beyond. She wanted them to know she had returned. Darren trembled, his mind a storm. He should have run. He should never have touched her armor. Yet even as fear clawed at him, another thought burned brighter. He had repaired her, and because of him she was standing now. That truth was impossible to ignore. The machines regrouped, red, eyes glowing, their weapons charging again. Solara turned to Darren, her gaze fierce. You must understand, by repairing the crown you have tied yourself to me. You are no longer hidden. You are marked. They will hunt you now as they hunt me. His throat went dry. Hunt me? I didn't ask for this. No one asked for destiny, she said, stepping closer, her armor blazing. But it comes all the same. And now you must decide if you will run or stand. Her words carved into him like blades. He wanted to deny it, wanted to shout that he was just a mechanic, just a man who fixed machines. But even as the thought formed, he knew it was a lie. He had chosen when he pulled her from the shadows. He had chosen when he welded the broken plates. And every choice led him here. The ground trembled again as the fleet outside shifted position. Through the shattered bay doors, Darren saw the black warships aligning, their cannons glowing brighter, charging for a strike that would shatter the entire station. If they fired, nothing would survive. Not him, not her, not even the ruins of this place. Solara's voice cut through his fear. Do you trust me? The question stunned him. Trust you? I don't even know you. You know enough, she said, her eyes blazing with golden fire. You know I would have died without you. You know I do not fear them. And you know I stand against the darkness that hunts us all. Trust is not built in years, human. Sometimes it is built in a single choice. The cannons outside screamed with power, their glow ready to fire. The machines inside closed in, their weapons aimed at Darren now, red eyes fixed on him. For the first time he realized the truth. He wasn't a bystander anymore. He was part of this, bound by action and consequence. Darren clenched his fists, his fear warring with the strange fire rising in his chest. He looked at her, at the Empress standing unbroken in the storm, and he made his choice. I don't know what's happening, he said, his voice shaking but firm. But I won't leave you. If they want to fight, they'll have to go through both of us. A faint smile curved her lips, sharp and proud. Then rise, Darren of Earth. You have chosen your path. Her hand touched the glowing crown on her chest, and the station shook as if the universe itself responded. From the darkness outside, hidden ships emerged, massive vessels of gleaming silver bearing banners of suns and crowns. They moved into position, answering her call. The hunters had brought their fleet, but the Empress had hers too, and as the first blasts lit the void, Darren knew the storm was only beginning. The battle outside raged like thunder across the stars. The black warships of the hunters poured fire into the station, their cannons tearing chunks from the old structure. Every blast shook the floor beneath Darren's feet, every vibration threatening to tear the place apart. Inside the hangar, golden light clashed with red fire as Solara's power shielded them from destruction. Darren gripped the edge of a steel beam, his knuckles white. He had never felt so small, so powerless. This was no ordinary fight. This was war between empires, war that spanned systems he had never even heard of. And yet somehow, he was standing in the middle of it. Solara turned to him, her expression unyielding, her voice carrying the weight of command. You must listen, Darren of Earth. The hunters are not only my enemies. If they succeed, they will not stop with me. They will come for your world too. Humanity may believe itself hidden, but nothing stays hidden forever. Her words cut deep. Darren had grown up hearing stories of Earth's fragility, how humanity was a young species still climbing from its cradle, still thinking itself alone among the stars. He had believed it too. But standing here, surrounded by fleets and powers, that could crush planets, he realized the truth. Humanity was not alone, and the galaxy was not gentle. You ask me to choose, he said, his voice low. But I'm just one man. I can't decide for all of Earth. You already have, Solara replied sharply. You chose when you repaired the crown. You chose when you refused to run. Do not think your choices are small, Darren. The galaxy watches. They will see a human stand beside me and they will ask, does Earth stand with the Empress or against her? Her words hit him harder than the blasts shaking the station. He hadn't thought of it that way. To him, it had only been survival, instinct, an act of kindness. But to others, to rulers, to soldiers, to enemies, it meant far more. His choice now was not just about himself. It was about his people, about all of humanity. Outside the hangar doors, the hunters' fleet shifted. Formation. Their cannons glowed brighter, building to a single devastating strike. One blast, and the station would be nothing but debris. Darren's chest tightened, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Solara stepped closer, her golden light surrounding him like a shield. You fear because you do not yet understand what you carry. Humanity has something the hunters cannot match. You are unpredictable. You are relentless. And you are dangerous in ways even you do not see. Stand with me, and humanity will no longer be ignored. Stand aside, and your world will burn in silence. Her words set fire to his thoughts. He thought of Earth, not just its armies or its leaders, but its people. Farmers and workers, families and children. People who still believed the stars, were far away, safe and distant. They didn't know that war was already at their doorstep. They didn't know that a single decision, made by one mechanic on a forgotten station, might shape their fate. His hands shook. He wanted to deny it, to say it wasn't his burden. But deep down, he knew it was. The moment he touched the broken armor, his life had stopped being his own. Fate had pulled him into the storm, and now he had to choose which way to steer. The hunters fired again. The station groaned, beams twisting under the pressure. Smoke filled the air. Solara raised her hand, golden shields holding back the collapse, but even she could not protect them forever. Time was running out. Darren closed his eyes. Fear screamed in his chest, but beneath it another voice whispered, the same voice that had guided him before. Fix what is broken. Stand where others fall. He opened his eyes and his voice came steady, louder than he thought possible. If this is what it means, then I choose. Earth will not run. If humanity must be seen, then let them see us standing. Solara's eyes blazed like twin suns. She raised her chin, her voice carrying the weight of a queen reborn. Then it is decided. The Empress of the Stars does not stand alone. Humanity stands beside her. Her words rippled through the air, and as if the galaxy itself heard, new signals lit the void. Fleets of silver and gold ships burst from hidden warp gates answering her call, their banners shining with suns and crowns. The hunters, once confident in their numbers, shifted uneasily as the balance of power changed before their eyes. Darren's chest tightened as he watched the new fleets rise. He had chosen. Humanity had chosen. And now the galaxy would know Earth's. But as the fleets prepared for war, a darker thought whispered in his mind. Choices had consequences. By standing with Solara, humanity had stepped into a firestorm that might never end. And whether they survived it, or were consumed by it, was a question only the future could answer. The hangar shook again as the battle, roared louder. The storm was no longer rising. It was here. And for the first time, Darren realized this was not only Solara's war. It was his. The void outside the broken station became a sea of fire. Golden banners of the Empress's fleet stretched across the stars, their ships gleaming like suns against the black. Opposite them, the Hunter's armada burned with red light, countless warships pressing forward like a tidal wave of steel. Between the two forces hung the silent, fragile station, cracked, bleeding sparks and trembling under the weight of war. Darren stood at Solara's side, his heart racing. He had chosen, and now there was no turning back. The Hunters wanted her crown. The galaxy wanted her throne. And somehow, a mechanic from Earth stood in the middle of it all. Solara raised her hand, and the golden veins of her armor pulsed brighter than ever. Her voice echoed through the hangar, strong and commanding, carrying across comms to her fleets. Today, the crown of stars rises again. Today, the Hunters learn what it means to challenge an Empress. Her ships answered with thunder. From their gleaming hulls, cannons roared to life, spears of golden light tearing across the void. The first line of Hunter warships shattered under the impact, exploding into burning fragments. The black tide reeled, but then surged back with equal fury. Plasma storms lit the darkness, beams of fire striking against shields, starships exploding one after another in the chaos.